So, are you ready to talk miracles today? Yeah? Okay, good, because we're talking miracles. I've been working with this beautiful little book called The 12 Conditions of a Miracle by Dr. Michael Abrams, and just kind of digesting bits and pieces of it throughout the year, and it's just really touched me, and I want to share some of it, some of the teachings from that with you today and explore that in relationship to our spiritual teachings. And so I've been contemplating, as I've been working with this book, the relationship between miracles and the universal spiritual principles that we practice here and teach in Unity, and how they work together. So let me give you an example. I was thinking about eclipses and how Neanderthals might have viewed an eclipse back then, like of the way we've understood it in the past, or the way that we've seen miracles in context. Because sometimes we think miracles are like the impossible happening, right? Sometimes we think they are kind of defying or circumventing the laws of the universe. Or maybe, depending on our religious upbringing of the past, maybe we've been indoctrinated to think that miracles were granted at some times. But what if we could step into the flow of miracles every day in our lives? What if we could create the conditions such that miracles occur every day of our lives? Because really, what is a miracle other than the extraordinary occurring that's just beyond our current human understanding? Right? How many times have we blown open our thinking by discovering new things and having new, even spiritual experiences and that were previously beyond our human understanding? So we're going to expand our thinking a bit today. And the Unity author, Gardner Hunting, wrote, "The difference between what we call a natural process and what we call a miracle is largely a matter of the time required to reach the desired end. But doing a miracle is merely a matter of understanding the laws by which it is done." It's a matter of understanding those spiritual principles. So the more we understand those spiritual principles and divine law, the more we can step into the flow of experiencing the extraordinary in our everyday lives. Russell Lake, another Unity minister, in the book Thank God for Prayer, he writes, "Miracles have occurred and will occur again out of the blue when seemingly one has done nothing to attract them. But an analysis will reveal that right conditions invariably were present, including a corresponding consciousness, self-image, and faith." So we're getting into that consciousness today and that self-image and faith, grabbing hold of that deep faith today to claim those miracles in our lives. So Dr. Abrams, he goes into 12 different conditions for a miracle in this book, but that's like 12 talks, right? So I'm not going to keep you here all day. We're going to just explore a few spiritual principles for us to practice in our lives this week around this. But before we go into that, I want to start by sharing a story that he shares at the beginning of his book. And being a backpacker and hiker, and I love being, nature is my sanctuary, I related to this story, and I hope you will too. But he tells the story of being on a backpacking trip and hiking up and being at the Continental Divide. And he was camping up on the Continental Divide. And he was, taking in the breathtaking views and the beauty of nature and just the magnificence of the surroundings. And he goes and he gathers some snow from a snow patch that was left and puts it in his pot to boil up some water to make his dinner. So he starts heating the snow up, and at some point he picks up the pot and he's swirling the slush around to get it moving and dissipating the slush. And a bit of the water slops out onto the rock below him at his feet. And as he's waiting for his water to boil, he's contemplating the water that's dripping down on the stone and watching the droplets roll down the rock. And he began to think, here I am at the continental divide. And theoretically, water on the western slope of the continental divide makes its way to the Pacific, right? And on the eastern slope makes its way to the Atlantic. And as he contemplated that, he thought, how much is that? That's so much like what happens in our inner journey, that when we are at that point of origin, if you will, and we have one thought, maybe one word, one action step, one choice that we make can send us in a whole different direction in our lives in that moment, in a whole different direction, and leads to a whole ocean of possibilities in a different direction. And he goes on to say, I just want to share what he says about this moment. He says, although you may not realize it, every moment of your life, you are balanced on your own continental divide. Each second of your life, you walk along a precipitous ridge, a knife edge that divides your life into two entirely different potential dimensions. On one side lies the world you live in now, the world of ordinary struggle and uncertainty. On the other side, powerful image. And so what is it that we need to do to lean into the direction of the miraculous in our lives, to lean into spiritual principle such that we move into the flow of the miracles that are already flowing in our lives and blessing us in so many ways? Well, I'm going to offer us 3 spiritual practices to really work with this week. The first one is emptying ourselves. The second is seeing in a certain way. And the third is engaging the cycles and the flow of our lives. So let's talk about emptying ourselves. We have to empty ourselves both internally and externally. So, well, how many of you are continuous, avid worriers? How many of you worry a bit? Yeah, okay. So it's kind of human for us to worry at times, right? Well, I'm a habitual worrier, but I have to work really hard and be really disciplined to shift out of worry and to redirect my attention into infinite possibilities, into that realm of God and the infinite, and hold those higher thoughts of truth. So really emptying ourselves is shifting from worry or those other limiting beliefs, if you will, to wonder. Shifting to a mindset of awe and wonder and possibility that awaits us and that's there for us in the moment. I would also propose that emptying ourselves requires us to empty the external areas of our lives at times too, because our lives can get pretty noisy and cluttered, can't they? Like, I know that I can fill my life with overscheduling at times, or, let things around the house get cluttery or whatever. And the more we give our loving attention to quieting down our schedule a bit, pausing, creating some breathing space, and leaving room for spirit to come in rather than being so busy that there's no room to see the miracles in the moment, to realize the miracles in the moment. And same goes with stuff, right? It can have a heavy burden on us at times to have a bunch of things that are kind of suffocating us in certain ways. So we have to empty ourselves internally and externally to open ourselves to the miraculous. And empty ourselves of things that block us from really stepping into that pure potentiality of spirit. So I want to share with you a parable that I ran across. And the parable goes like this. There were two seeds, both side by side, laying in fertile ground. And the first seed said, I want to grow. I want to send my roots down into the earth beneath me, and I want to thrust my sprouts up through the earth's crust above me. I want to unfurl my tender buds like banners announcing the arrival of spring. I want to feel the sun on my face, and I want to feel the dew on my petals. And so she grew. The second seed said, if I send my roots down, I don't know what's going to, they might get damaged in the dark, if I send them down. And if I push up through the tough ground, I might damage my sprouts, my delicate sprouts. And if I let my bud up to see the light, maybe a snail will eat it. And if I fully blossom, maybe a little child will come by and pick the blossom and I'll die. And so she decided she'd wait until it was safe. And then a hen came scratching around in the spring ground for seeds and promptly ate the waiting seed. So I like that parable because, to me, it reminds me that any choice we make is a risk, right? We never know what's going to happen in our life. And every step we take, every choice we make is a risk. And so why not really allow ourselves to be fully who we're meant to be, to blossom, to sprout and grow in new ways in our lives, to reach for light and that spectacularness inside each of us. And what I know to be true as we empty ourselves is that the universe, God, spirit, whatever name you want to use, abhors a vacuum. So the minute we let go and we let those thoughts of limitation go, things rush in to fill us up and to help us grow and evolve. So then from that place, we can see things, practice seeing things in a certain way. And what do I mean by that? I mean, we have to practice seeing with eyes of awe and wonder and anticipation, those spiritual eyes of awe and wonder. I just took my son again, to the Denver Meow Wolf last weekend. How many of you have been to Meow Wolf, just out of curiosity? Quite a few. Okay, yeah. So those of you who aren't familiar with it, it is a interactive modern art exhibit, immersive experience. And we went to the one in Santa Fe a year ago, too, and that was amazing. And I was thinking about that. And what I loved, especially about the one in Santa Fe, is that at Meow Wolf, also, it's like a realm of discovery. You go from room to room. There are 70 rooms at the one in Santa Fe. And you go into these rooms and you get into this mode of exploration where you open up a medicine cabinet and there's this little tunnel that goes to a little toy mouse, or you crawl through a fireplace and you end up in an enchanted forest, or you open up a refrigerator door and you step through to a whole other realm. And it struck me so powerfully because it put me in a realm of possibilities, like, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen here, and I wonder what's in this drawer, and what's going to happen when I turn this corner. And what if we lived our lives seeing our life from that perspective, from that awe and wonder and discovery and anticipation of something good coming, and just in that exploratory kind of frame of mind. Such a powerful way to see our lives from that spiritual anticipation of good, of God everywhere present. And And I know that's not always easy when we're struggling. You know, I've definitely had a bumpy road the last couple of years, and I had a gift a few weeks ago. I had a birthday, and I opened up the Daily Word that morning, and the word was holy. And the Daily Word reading really captured some words that I needed to be reminded of, and that is, there are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing was a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle. What a great reminder, isn't it, to stay in that mindset of everything being a miracle. And when we see things in a certain way, when we see it with spiritual perspective, then we're living from the realization that where we stand right now is holy ground. Where each of us are standing is holy ground right now. And we can treat our life with reverence from that place, and curiosity and awe and wonder. And then we can engage the cycles of our life from that place, right? And go with the flow, get in and engage the flow of life, no matter how tough it can be. And get into that realm of giving and receiving to life, and from life. I love the passage in Luke chapter 6, verse 38. Give, and it will be given to you, a good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap, for the measure you give will be the measure you give back. Such a beautiful passage if we look at, I think what that's trying to tell us on a spiritual, metaphysical level is that state of consciousness it's calling us to is to give ourselves wholeheartedly to life, to give ourselves wholeheartedly to whatever situation we face, whatever hardship it is, to put our whole heart into whatever is going on, to move through it, and we are given blessings in return, that law of giving and receiving, if you will. Now, and being a contributor to life and receiving the beauty of life. Now, I say that, and I know that's not easy, right? Because we all have our hard stretches, and I'll admit I had a very hard stretch this week. So I'm, working this talk big time too, in that some of you know that I've been part-time caregiving for a family member with dementia for the last 2 years. It's been a rough road, and the last month has been extremely bumpy. And I found myself on a hike with a friend this week. And just melting down, just like crying on the trail. I leave a lot of tears on the trail. It's a good place to work through things, but just kind of melting down. But there was a beauty in melting down and surrendering. I think when we reach that place of rawness where we can just let stuff go and empty ourselves of those burdens and fully surrender to Spirit, that's where we start to really be open to fully engaging what's in front of us, fully engaging the cycles of life and whatever it is we're facing. And in that meltdown, I was reminded of my theme for the year that just brought me back to Spiritual Center. My theme for the year is, this year I live a life of miracles. This year I live a life of miracles. And as I allowed myself to feel that moment and that truth, that spiritual truth, I began to see all the different synchronicities that have occurred over the last 2 years that have brought a positive trajectory to things and that have led to so many different blessings and gifts along a very difficult journey. And I realized, as I kind of processed that this week, that miracles don't always get handed to us in these nice little pretty packages, do they? No, sometimes they're very messy miracles, right? Sometimes life has to fall apart in order for things to fall together in a more beautiful way, in a more elegant way, or effective way, or whatever it is. Sometimes things have to fall apart, and in that too are miracles as well. So a friend sent me this meme that's on the screen with the just tremendous whitewater rapids with a kayaker on top, and it says me just going with the flow, and then the flow. And I thought, yeah, how appropriate, right? Because sometimes the flow is like that, like serious whitewater, right? But here's what I know to be true. We all have the tools, the skills, the spiritual principles, the universal spiritual laws, that power and presence of God that is always available and unfailing. We all have that to lean into at any moment of our lives. In the midst of the really scary whitewater, we have that to lean into, to rise above the storms and the rapids of our lives, and to move forward to miracles in our lives and to be in the flow. So I invite us all this week to really embrace that. And I want to close with one last quote from Dr. Abrams. He says, when the activity of the conscious mind or ego becomes perfectly quiet, the full energy and light of the one pours through the self unobstructed. When this happens, miracles happen spontaneously as you find yourself automatically at the right place, at the right time, learning and doing the right things. Isn't that true? So let us all take that forward this week and get into the flow of miracles in our lives. And so it is.